Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something literally mind-bending. How do we actually get what we want out of wild, unpredictable systems? Because whether we're dealing with the vast, multidimensional space of an artificial intelligence or trying to manage the narrative gravity of a living, breathing myth, the core problem of control is exactly the same. How do we communicate our intent so precisely that the system has no choice but to give us the very specific reality we're asking for? Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the architecture of intent, soft versus hard prompts, engineering the exact image, prompting a mythic departure, the necessary procedural distance, and wrap up with distance instead of haunting. Let's get right to it. Section 1. The architecture of intent. We're starting right at the foundation of how we express what we want to unpredictable entities. So how do you actually generate the exact reality you want? This is kind of the holy grail, right? Because whether you're trying to coax a specific answer out of a machine learning model, or even trying to close out a messy chapter in your own life, vague instructions are going to give you chaotic, messy results every single time. You can't just wave your hands and hope for the best. You really have to architect it. And that brings us to what researchers call hard prompts. This is absolutely crucial. We have to use these to totally bypass ambiguity and engineer the exact outcome we want. Now, a hard prompt isn't just a vibe or some abstract mathematical concept. It is a strict sequence of discrete, human-readable words or rules. You're essentially forcing the system to operate on fixed, interpretable terms. Moving on to Section 2, soft versus hard prompts. Let's see how these two competing philosophies actually play out when instructing generative AI. Okay, so we've got a real clash of philosophies here. On one side, you've got soft prompts. These are basically continuous feature vectors, which is just a fancy way of saying unreadable math. Algorithms find them, they're hyper-specialized, and honestly, they're a nightmare to transfer from one model to another. But then, on the flip side, you have hard prompts. These are made of discrete words. They're beautifully human-readable and completely portable. You can plug them straight into any text interface. The historical catch, though, we've usually had to just blindly guess and handcraft these hard prompts through a ton of trial and error. All right, Section 3, engineering the exact image. We're going to look at a super fascinating computer science paper on the PEZ method, which stands for Hard Prompts Made Easy, to see how we can actually discover these perfect prompts automatically. This is where it gets crazy. Imagine you have a target image you want to recreate. The PEZ algorithm mathematically works backward to uncover the exact discrete words needed to rebuild that visual concept from scratch. By projecting continuous math onto the nearest real words, it spits out a phrase like cuddly teddy skateboarding. Now, to us, that sounds a bit disjointed, right? But to the machine, it is an absolute flawless blueprint. You feed that hard prompt back in, and boom, it perfectly recreates the concept of a skateboarding teddy bear. We see this exact same discrete optimization working again here, but this time it's translating an entire artistic style into a short, readable prompt. The algorithm churns through the data and discovers the phrase, get this, softly dancer cardio. Seriously, softly dancer cardio. It sounds like nonsense, but it acts like magic. When you use that as a prompt, it flawlessly regenerates the ethereal flowing blue ballerina style of the target image. So what this process mathematically proves is that strict discrete gradient optimization strips out all the noise. It leaves you with exactly the instructions you need. Think of it like taking an unreadable, multidimensional alien language and forcing it into sturdy English building blocks. The algorithm maintains these continuous vectors, projects them down to the nearest real words, calculates the gradient, and updates the prompt. It's just a relentless procedural loop that forces absolute chaos to yield a highly portable, exact, hard command. Which brings us to Section 4, prompting a mythic departure. We're doing a bit of a pivot here, taking that exact same AI logic and dropping it straight into a literary universe where a living myth has to be managed. Listen to this incredible quote from our fictional text. Return without distance is just haunting. This is a stunning realization. It perfectly explains why dealing with an exiled myth, in this case the characters Peter and Wendy, requires a strictly engineered, totally unromantic departure. You literally cannot just shove a myth out the door. If you do, they'll just linger. You have to carefully, procedurally engineer their exit so the system processes it as final. And just like we saw with the AI models, we have two competing approaches to control playing out between the characters here. We have Eveline, who wants a cinematic shortcut. She wants a little brown bottle of chloroform, pure theatrical melodrama, emotional fumes, basically a soft prompt.
But then we have Lady, and Lady insists on a hard prompt. She demands the strict procedure of a physical boat, manual copying of rules, and absolutely zero magic. She refuses to drug them chemically. She insists on exhausting them procedurally. Eveline's argument with that chloroform would have been faster. And yeah, she honestly just loves the melodrama of 19th century chemistry. She's craving that messy, cinematic shortcut to just get the story over with quickly. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Lady fires back with an unyielding response. Bad methods often are. Faster doesn't mean better. She is reminding us that if you bypass the correct procedural steps, you leave the system, or in this case the myth, completely unresolved. A fast, sloppy exit just means the myth is going to bounce back as destiny. They have to use the correct, difficult, discrete steps. Section 5. The necessary procedural distance. Let's dig into the actual mechanics of how Lady hard prompts these living characters. To guarantee this clean break, Lady literally forces Peter and Wendy to physically exhaust the myth by copying down exact rules. And we're talking bizarre, discrete procedures here, like do not steal carriers without asking what they carry, or give the mail back, or a portal is a door that must be denied tenure. They are behaving exactly like those hard tokens optimizing an AI output. The text even says they were deromanticized. By forcing them to process these incredibly mundane rules, Lady completely strips away the magic, leaving behind nothing but the hard, cold architecture of reality. Then we get the final execution of this hard prompt. They aren't put into some magical swirling portal. Nope. They are put into a low, ugly, stubborn boat on the industrial black water of Aslais Creek. As the text puts it, beautiful boats are liabilities in scenes like this because they invite violins. There are no violins here. This departure had to be awkward. It needed a boat packed like dangerous manuscripts. It was a precise, physical command executed without a single shred of sentimentality. And that leads us to Section 6, distance instead of haunting. This is the profound conclusion of the procedural exile, where the exact environment guarantees they can't just waltz back into the system. It brilliantly illustrates why they were sent toward a horizon instead of through a portal. Think about it. A portal is just a door begging to be opened again. It's return architecture that practically invites bargaining. But a horizon? A horizon continuously recedes. It does not bargain. It enforces permanent, undeniable distance. The horizon teaches you that departure isn't a problem to be solved. It's a relationship to distance. It is literally the ultimate hard prompt for a myth. The creek accepted the whole. We floated. It counted. The system processed the discrete command, and the myth was safely sent off into the fog. Aslais Creek didn't care about their backstory. It didn't care about their magic. It only asked the physical reality of the boat. Does it float? Well, it floated. Therefore, it counted. The optimization was complete, the prompt was executed perfectly, and the narrative was finally, properly concluded. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty wild thought. Whether it's an AI generating a picture of a skateboarding teddy bear, or a living myth being forcefully written out of its own story, the system only ever gives you exactly what is precisely asked of it. So, how closely are you examining the discrete rules and procedural prompts governing your own life's narrative? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive today, and hey, keep questioning the architecture of the reality around you.